The steady hum of servers filled the room as Aidan Caldwell sat at his desk, his fingers hovering over the keyboard. At 42, he had built Vertex Technologies from nothing into a multi-million-dollar enterprise. Tonight, however, his attention was not on quarterly reports or client meetings. His eyes were fixed on a folder that should not exist. "What on earth is this?" he muttered, double-clicking on a video file labeled Instructions. The screen flickered to life, and his wife, Miranda Caldwell's, face appeared. Her usual warm smile had been replaced by something cold and calculated. She was speaking to someone off camera. "Remember what Mommy told you, sweetie. If anyone asks questions, especially the police, you tell them Daddy hits you. The more you cry, the better. Judges love tears." Aidan's jaw clenched as he watched his daughter Sophie's uncertain face appear in the frame. "But Daddy doesn't hit me," Sophie protested in a small, trembling voice. "This is just pretend, baby. Like acting in your school play." Miranda's voice took on a sickeningly sweet tone. "And once Daddy is gone, Gavin Drake will buy you that smartphone you wanted. Won't that be nice?" Aidan's hand curled into a fist, his knuckles white against his desk, as betrayal churned in his gut like acid. He had found the videos while setting up Sophie's new tablet, connecting it to their family cloud storage. A simple father-daughter moment had unveiled a conspiracy that made his blood run cold. "You foolish, greedy wretch," he whispered, his voice razor-sharp in the empty office. He opened another video. This one showed Miranda coaching Sophie on specific details, times, dates, and locations. She was crafting a narrative designed to destroy him by using their daughter as her weapon. Aidan pulled up his secure terminal and began creating encrypted copies of the videos. His fingers flew across the keyboard, muscle memory from years of coding taking over while his mind raced. Each copy was stored in a different location, protected by layers of security that would make even government agencies envious. "Mr. Caldwell," his assistant's voice crackled through the intercom. "Your wife called. She's asking if you'll be home for dinner." Aidan pressed the response button. His voice, steady despite the rage coursing through him, said, "Tell her I'll be there in an hour, Sarah, and clear my schedule for tomorrow morning." He turned back to his screen, documenting everything he had found. Aidan had grown up watching his mother work double shifts at the diner, scraping by after his father abandoned them, and he had sworn never to be that kind of man, never to let his family down. Now, Miranda was trying to paint him as something even worse. The irony was not lost on him. He picked up his phone and dialed a number he had not used in months. After 3 rings, a gruff voice answered. "Silas Investigations. This is Aidan Caldwell. I need your services again, discreetly. I want everything. Where she goes, who she meets, what she spends. And I need information on someone named Gavin Drake. He's in real estate." There was a pause as the voice replied. "Gavin Drake. Let's just say you are not the first husband to call about him. I will send you my updated rates. Money is not an issue. Just get me what you need." Aidan ended the call and leaned back in his chair. He thought about the late-night text he had seen on Miranda's phone months ago, the ones he had chosen to ignore. His wife had mistaken his patience for weakness, a costly error. He pulled up his contact list and selected another number. The line rang twice. Julian Moore speaking. "Julian, I need you in my office first thing tomorrow. Bring the divorce paperwork we discussed last year." After a pause, Julian asked, "You found something?" "Oh, I found something all right. You're going to want to see this in person." "That bad?" "Worse." Aidan's voice turned cold. "She's trying to frame me for abuse, using Sophie." There was a sharp intake of breath on the other end. "I'll be there at 8. Aidan stood up, gathering his things. He had a dinner to attend, a performance to put on, and Miranda would never see him coming. He had learned long ago that revenge, like success, required patience. He drove home in his black Tesla, his mind already mapping out his next several moves. The house was lit up when he pulled into the driveway, warm light spilling onto the manicured lawn. A picture-perfect scene for a picture-perfect lie. Inside, Miranda was setting the table, her blonde hair falling in artful waves around her shoulders. She looked up with a bright smile that made Aiden's stomach turn. "There you are. I was starting to worry," she said. She walked over to kiss him, and it took everything in him not to recoil. "Sophie, Daddy's home." Their daughter came running down the stairs, and Aiden's heart constricted. She threw herself into his arms, and he hugged her tight, breathing in the scent of her strawberry shampoo. "Did you get my tablet working, Daddy?" she asked. "All set, Princess. It's charging in your room." He set her down, maintaining his usual warm smile. "Why don't you go wash up for dinner?" As Sophie ran off, Miranda wrapped her arms around his waist. "You work too hard, honey. You should delegate more." Aiden returned her embrace, playing his part. "Maybe you're right. How was your day at the shelter?" "Oh, same old. So many animals needing homes." She turned back to the kitchen. "I made your favorite beef stroganoff." "You spoil me," he replied, watching her walk away. The shelter was her cover story, her alibi for afternoons spent with Gavin Drake. Aiden wondered how long she had been planning this, how many months or years she had been laying the groundwork for his destruction. Dinner was a masterclass in deception. Miranda chatted about neighborhood gossip, while Sophie talked about school. Aiden responded appropriately, laughing at the right moments, all while imagining the look on his wife's face when her world came crashing down. After Sophie was tucked in, Aiden poured himself 3 fingers of scotch and stood in the kitchen, staring out at the city lights. Behind him, Miranda loaded the dishwasher, humming softly. "I was thinking," she said, closing the dishwasher door, "maybe we could take a family vacation soon. Sophie has been asking about Disneyland." Aiden took a slow sip of his scotch. "Sounds nice. Why don't you look into some dates?" "Really?" She beamed at him. "You're usually so busy with work." "Family comes first," he said, raising his glass slightly. "Always." Later that night, as Miranda slept beside him, Aiden lay awake, his mind working through contingencies. He thought about the signs he had ignored, the red flags he had dismissed. His wife had underestimated him. Assuming his devotion to their family meant he was weak. She would learn just how wrong she was. In the morning, he would begin dismantling her carefully constructed plan. He would strip away her resources, expose her lies, and ensure she lost everything. Gavin Drake, too. Aiden had dealt with corporate raiders and hostile takeovers. This would be no different. Just business, executed. He turned his head, studying Miranda's peaceful expression in the darkness. She had no idea what was coming. Good. He wanted her to feel secure, confident in her scheme. It would make her fall that much harder. Aiden closed his eyes, his decision made. There would be no mercy, no second chances. Miranda had chosen her path, and now she would face the consequences. He would protect Sophie, preserve his legacy, and make sure his wife regretted ever thinking she could destroy him. The game was set. Now it was time to play. Morning light streamed through the windows as Aiden prepared breakfast. The kitchen filled with the aroma of coffee and bacon. He had always been an early riser, a habit formed during years of startup grind. And today, it served a different purpose. "Pancakes," Sophie exclaimed, bouncing into the kitchen in her school uniform. "With chocolate chips." "Coming right up, Princess." Aiden poured batter onto the griddle, carefully arranging chocolate chips into a smiley face. "Did you pack your homework?" he asked. "Yes, Daddy." Sophie climbed onto a stool at the counter. "Is Mommy taking me to school today?" "She has her volunteer work, remember." "I'll drop you off on my way to the office." Miranda appeared in the doorway, already dressed in designer jeans and a silk blouse. Her makeup was flawless, her hair perfectly styled. Everything about her screamed sophisticated housewife. "Morning, loves," she said, kissing Sophie's head, then Aiden's cheek. The shelter called. "They're short-staffed today. I might be there longer than usual. No problem, Aiden replied, sliding a plate of pancakes toward Sophie. I'll handle pickup too. Miranda's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then quickly tucked it away. Thanks, honey. You're the best. Aiden noted a slight flush in her cheeks, the way her fingers lingered on her phone. Another message from Gavin Drake. No doubt. He wondered if she was meeting him at his penthouse or one of his development properties. After dropping Sophie at school, Aiden drove to his office building downtown. Julian Moore was already waiting in the lobby, his briefcase in hand. They rode the elevator in silence, both men knowing the gravity of what was to come. Aiden's office was a testament to his success. Modern furnishings, state-of-the-art technology, and views of the city skyline. He closed the door and activated the privacy screens on the windows. Show me, Julian said, setting his briefcase on the conference table. Aiden pulled up the videos on his secure terminal. Julian watched without comment, his expression growing darker with each passing minute. When the last video ended, Julian let out a long breath. This is beyond despicable, Aiden. She's not just trying to take everything from you. She's trying to put you in prison. I know, Aiden replied, leaning against his desk. What are my options? Julian opened his briefcase and pulled out several folders. First, we document everything. These videos, any communications between them, financial records. We build an airtight case showing premeditation. Already started. I have copies secured in multiple locations. Good. Next, we separate finances. Quietly freeze joint accounts. Transfer assets. She probably has her own stash built up, but we can limit the damage. Aiden nodded. What about Sophie? These videos are invaluable. No judge will look kindly on a mother coaching her child to make false abuse allegations. We file for emergency custody the moment we move against Miranda and Gavin. A wry smile crossed Julian's face. That arrogant scoundrel has been skating on thin ice for years. My firm has had run-ins with him before. Give me a week to dig into his dealings. I want everything. Aiden's voice was hard. Every skeleton, every shady deal, every woman he's taken advantage of. You'll have it. Julian began laying out documents. Sign these. They'll get the ball rolling on asset protection and start the investigation process. Aiden signed where indicated, his signature sharp and decisive. How long until we're ready to strike? He asked. 2 weeks minimum. We need ironclad evidence of the affair, documentation of her activities, and a complete picture of Gavin's vulnerabilities. Make it 3. I want this perfect. They spent the next hour discussing strategy, timing, and contingencies. When Julian left, Aiden called Silas. I need you to focus on Gavin's properties first, especially the new development on Riverside Avenue. Already on it, Silas replied. Interesting pattern of visitors at odd hours. Do you want photos? Everything. Every detail. Aiden spent the rest of the morning in meetings, playing his role as CEO while his personal life underwent covert warfare. Around noon, his phone buzzed with a text from Miranda. Running late at the shelter. Can you grab dinner with Sophie? Love you. He typed back a quick affirmative, then pulled up the tracking software he had installed on her phone. The location showed her at the Regal Hotel downtown, Gavin Drake's latest project. His phone rang again. Silas. You're going to want to see this, the investigator said without preamble. I just sent you some files. Looks like your wife is not the only married woman in Gavin's circle. Aiden opened his email, scanning through the attached photos. Gavin with various women, all following the same pattern. Expensive restaurants, hotel meetings, gifts of jewelry and cars. He has a type, Silas continued. Society women with affluent husbands, lured by luxury, then used to access their husbands' resources. Keep digging. I want to know about his finances, his partners, everything. Already found some interesting irregularities in his development companies. A lot of cash moving through shell corporations. Aiden's eyes narrowed. Money laundering. That appears to be the case. Push harder on that angle. Yes, and Silas, money is no object. Whatever you need to get concrete proof. He ended the call and leaned back in his chair, processing the information. Gavin was not just a homewrecker. He was a criminal using women as pawns in his schemes. Hayden wondered if Miranda knew what she was really involved in, or if she was simply another mark. That evening, he took Sophie for burgers and ice cream, listening to her chatter about school and friends. Looking at her innocent face, his resolve hardened. She deserved better than a mother who would use her as a weapon. "Daddy," she said suddenly, "why does Mommy want me to say bad things about you?" Aiden's heart stopped for a moment. He set his burger down and looked at his daughter carefully. "What do you mean, Princess?" Sophie pushed her fries around her plate. "She says I need to practice saying things, but I don't want to. You don't hurt me, do you?" "No, I don't." He reached across the table and took her small hand. "And I never will. Sometimes grown-ups do bad things because they're confused or angry, but that's not your fault." "Okay." She nodded, though her eyes were troubled. "Is Mommy confused?" "Yes, baby, she is." Aiden squeezed her hand gently. "But I promise you, everything's going to be okay. Just keep being honest, all right?" "Okay, Daddy." That night, after putting Sophie to bed, Aiden sat in his home office reviewing the files Silas had sent. Photos, financial records, witness statements. The picture they painted was damning. Gavin Drake was not just having an affair with Miranda. He was systematically destroying families for profit. Aiden heard the front door open around 10 p.m. Miranda's heels clicked on the floor as she made her way upstairs. A few minutes later, she appeared in his office doorway, her cheeks flushed. "You're still up," she said, smiling. "Busy day always, huh?" He looked up from his computer. "How was the shelter?" "Exhausting. So many new cases." She came over and massaged his shoulders. "Heading to bed soon. Just a few more emails to handle." She kissed his cheek. "Don't work too hard." As her footsteps faded, Aiden pulled up the hotel security footage Silas had acquired. There was Miranda entering the Regal Hotel at 1 p.m. Gavin arrived 10 minutes later. They didn't leave until 9:30. Aiden closed his laptop, his expression cold. Soon, very soon, they would both learn the price of betrayal, and he would make sure the price was steep. Aiden maintained his routine: breakfast with Sophie, days at the office, and evenings pretending everything was normal. Behind the scenes, his web of surveillance and investigation grew tighter by the day. "We've got something big," Silas announced during their weekly meeting in a discreet downtown coffee shop. The former FBI agent slid a thick manila envelope across the table. "Gavin is not just laundering money. He's running a sophisticated fraud operation through his development projects." Aiden thumbed through the documents, his expression hardening. "Explain." "He's inflating construction costs and pocketing the difference through shell companies. But here's the kicker." Silas leaned forward, lowering his voice. "He's using his affairs as cover. Each mistress is connected to someone with money or influence. Your wife is not the first spouse he's tried to weaponize against their husband. Evidence is all here. Bank records, corporate filings, witness statements from 3 other women, plus surveillance photos linking him to known criminal elements." Aiden closed the envelope. "What about Miranda's activities?" "Daily meetings at the Regal, sometimes twice a day. She has withdrawn nearly $50,000 from your joint accounts over the past month, small amounts to stay under the radar." "Let her," Aiden said icily. "Every transaction is more evidence." Back at his office, Aiden reviewed the growing file of evidence with Julian. His lawyer whistled low as he examined Gavin's financial records. "This is federal-level fraud, Aiden. SEC violations, tax evasion, possibly RICO." One anonymous tip to the right authorities. "Not yet." Aiden shook his head. "We wait until we have everything. I want them both to feel completely secure before we strike." Julian pulled out another document. Miranda made an interesting move today. She tried to get Sophie's school to restrict your access to her records, claiming she had concerns about your behavior. Aiden's fingers dug into his armrest. The school refused without a court order, but it shows she's actively laying the groundwork for her plan. Time to talk to Sophie then. That evening, Aiden sat with his daughter in their backyard treehouse, her favorite spot for serious conversations. The setting sun painted the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. "Honey, has Mommy been asking you to do more practice sessions?" Sophie pulled her knees to her chest. "Sometimes when you're at work, she gets upset if I don't say it right." "Say what right?" "About you being mean." "But you're not mean, Daddy." Tears welled in her eyes. "I told her I don't want to lie anymore." Aiden wrapped an arm around her small shoulders. "Listen carefully, Princess. What Mommy is asking you to do is wrong. It's always okay to tell the truth, no matter what anyone says, even if she gets upset. You're being very brave, and I'm so proud of you." He kissed the top of her head. "Things might get a bit complicated soon, but I promise I'll always protect you." Later that night, Aiden received an encrypted email from his tech team. They had successfully breached Gavin's private server, uncovering years of correspondence, including recent exchanges with Miranda. The emails were damning: detailed plans to frame Aiden, discussions about asset division, even speculation about how to manipulate the media once charges were filed. Gavin had coached Miranda through every step, clearly following a playbook he had used before. Aiden forwarded everything to Julian, then began composing a new email to his board of directors. He needed them prepared for the storm that was coming. His company, his life's work, would not be collateral damage in Miranda's schemes. A soft knock at his office door interrupted his typing. Miranda stood there in silk pajamas, looking concerned. "You've been working late a lot," she said softly. "Is everything okay at the company?" Aiden gave her a reassuring smile. "Just some complex deals in the pipeline. Nothing to worry about." She came over and perched on his desk. "You know you can talk to me about anything, right? We're partners." It took every ounce of control not to laugh in her face. Instead, he reached up and touched her cheek. "I know, honey, you're always so supportive." Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Another message from Gavin Drake. No doubt. She didn't check it, but Aiden saw the momentary tension in her shoulders. "Don't stay up too late," she said, kissing his forehead before leaving. Aiden turned back to his computer, pulling up the latest surveillance photos. There was Miranda entering Gavin's office that morning. Another shot showed them having lunch at an intimate restaurant. A third captured them in an embrace in the parking garage of the Regal Hotel. He opened his bottom drawer and took out a shot of scotch, savoring the burn. Everything was almost in place. His technical team had backtraced Gavin's financial networks. Silas had compiled comprehensive surveillance records. Julian had prepared all the necessary legal documents. Soon, very soon, he would spring the trap. But first, he needed one final piece of evidence, proof that would make their destruction absolute and irreversible. The next morning, as he made Sophie's breakfast, his phone pinged with an alert. Miranda had just made another withdrawal from their joint account, minus $15,000 this time. He smiled, knowing each transaction was another nail in her coffin. "Daddy," Sophie called from the table, "can we go to the park after school today?" "Of course, Princess," he replied, setting a plate of French toast in front of her. "Anything for you." Because soon, he knew, her world would change forever, but he would make sure she emerged stronger, protected from the manipulations of a mother who saw her only as a pawn. Aiden watched his daughter eat, his resolve hardening with each passing moment. The endgame was approaching. Miranda and Gavin had no idea that their own actions had sealed their fate. They thought they were the hunters, but soon they would learn what it truly meant to be prey. In his office that afternoon, Aiden reviewed everything one final time. The evidence was overwhelming, the strategy perfect. There would be no escape, no mercy, no second chances. They had chosen to betray him, to use his daughter as a weapon against him. Now they would learn the true meaning of consequences. Aiden closed his laptop, a cold smile playing at his lips. The pieces were in place. The players had been positioned exactly where he wanted them. Soon, very soon, the real show would begin. And when it did, Miranda and Gavin would learn that they had made the biggest mistake of their lives in underestimating Aiden Caldwell. 2 weeks later, Miranda sat in her lawyer's office, her designer outfit replaced by department store clothes. Her carefully styled hair was now unkempt, and her manicure was chipped. "He's ruining me," she complained, pacing the cramped room. "My cards don't work, my phone's cut off. I can't even access my own closet." Marcus Webb, a divorce attorney recommended by Gavin, tried to project confidence. "We filed the restraining order once we convinced the judge that your husband's behavior is emotionally abusive. It's not working." Miranda slammed her hands on his desk. "He has screenshots of everything, the videos, the emails, my messages with Gavin. He's 10 steps ahead." "Then we changed tactics." Marcus leaned forward. "Start talking to your friends, your social circle. Paint him as controlling, manipulative. Create doubt about his story. I've tried, but he has proof. Actual proof." Miranda collapsed into a chair. "Do you know what happened when I called Susan to tell her Aiden was abusive?" she said. "She played me a recording of my own voice, planning the whole thing with Gavin." Marcus frowned. "How did Aiden get these recordings?" "He's a tech genius. He probably had everything bugged." Miranda wrapped her arms around herself. "Gavin said he'd help, but he's got his own problems now." "Indeed," Marcus said. Across town, Gavin Drake sat with his criminal defense team, surrounded by boxes of subpoenaed documents. "They've frozen everything," he reported grimly. "Personal accounts, business accounts, even my offshore safety nets. That scoundrel Aiden found them all." His lead attorney, Patricia Chun, reviewed the evidence. "The FBI has a solid paper trail: money laundering, tax evasion, fraud. Mr. Drake, you're facing serious time unless we can make a deal." "Then make one." Gavin loosened his tie, sweat beading on his forehead. "What about Aiden's company? There must be something we can use against him. We've looked. Vertex Technologies is clean. Too clean. He must have scrubbed everything when he realized what was happening." Patricia set down the papers. "Our best bet is to cooperate and provide information about other players in your schemes." "You mean turn on my partners?" Gavin laughed bitterly. "They'd ruin me. You might not have a choice. The feds are interviewing everyone. Contractors, suppliers, even your personal staff." Miranda's lawyer had already informed her. "They're building a RICO case." "This isn't going away," he said. Meanwhile, Aiden sat in a conference room at Vertex Technologies, discussing the situation with his board. "Stock prices are actually up," his CFO reported. "The market sees you as a victim who exposed corruption." "Keep our PR team on message," Aiden instructed. "We are not commenting on my personal situation, only expressing shock at Mr. Drake's alleged financial crimes and Miranda's accusations. Let her talk." Aiden pulled up a series of screenshots on the main screen. "Each time she makes a claim, we release proof that she's lying. Her own words condemn her." His phone buzzed with a text from Silas. "Meet with Gavin at the coffee shop. Recorded full conversation. You'll want to hear this." Aiden smiled. They were getting sloppy and desperate. Just perfect. That evening, he picked up Sophie from school. She was quieter than usual. "What's wrong, princess?" she asked, fidgeting with her backpack. "Tommy at school said his mom told him you're mean to mommy, but I know that's not true." Aiden pulled into a parking spot and turned to face her. "Some people believe lies because they don't know the whole story, but you know the truth, don't you?" She nodded. "Mommy wanted me to say lies about you. That's wrong, isn't it?" "Yes, it is." He squeezed her hand. "How about we get ice cream, and you can tell me about your science project?" As they sat in the ice cream parlor, Aiden's phone lit up with news alerts. Headlines blazed across the city's news outlets. Gavin Drake facing federal investigation, socialite wife jailed for restraining order violation, and the vindication of a tech CEO. Miranda's desperation grew with each passing day. She tried calling her old friends, but phones went unanswered. Her social media posts claiming victimhood were met with screenshots of her own plots. Even her favorite boutiques suddenly couldn't find her appointments in their systems. She showed up at Vertex Technologies' offices, causing a scene in the lobby. "You can't hide from me," she screamed as security held her back. "I'm still your wife," was her desperate cry, but no one acknowledged her. Each outburst just proved his points about her instability. That night, Miranda met Gavin in a cheap motel, one they could now afford. Both looked shabby. Their polished veneers were cracking. "We have to do something," she insisted. "He's destroying us." Gavin took a swig from a bottle of cheap scotch. "My lawyers say I'm looking at 20 years unless I cooperate." 20 years, Miranda," he said. "So cooperate. Tell them everything." "About what?" She laughed harshly. "Aiden is clean. My best people looked and found no dirty deals, no hidden accounts, nothing. He's got us by the throat, and he knows it." Miranda grabbed the bottle, drinking deeply. "I could take Sophie, get her to tell the right story this time." "Are you insane?" Gavin grabbed her arm. "You try that now with all the evidence he has. He'll bury you." Unknown to them, a tiny device in the smoke detector captured every word. In his home office, Aiden listened to the live feed with a cold smile playing on his lips. They were breaking, just as he had planned. Now it was time to tighten the noose. The headlines grew worse each day. Gavin's development projects were halted by federal prosecutors. Investors filed a class action suit against him. And Miranda's abuse claims were contradicted by new evidence. Miranda grew desperate. Her parents, ashamed of the scandal, cut off financial support. Gavin stopped answering her calls, focused on his own survival. She was running out of options. One afternoon, she waited outside Sophie's school, ignoring the restraining order Aiden had obtained. When she spotted her daughter on the playground, she rushed forward. "Sophie, baby, come here." The girl froze, then backed away. "I'm not supposed to talk to you. I'm your mother." Miranda grabbed her arm. "You have to tell everyone the truth about Daddy. Remember what we practiced." "Let go." Sophie tried to pull away. "You wanted me to lie." "That's wrong. He's turned you against me, your own mother." Teachers rushed over as Miranda grew hysterical. "Security!" someone shouted, and as security arrived, they pulled her away while Sophie burst into tears. Aiden, alerted by the school's call, found his daughter huddled in the counselor's office. "Daddy," she cried as she threw herself into his arms. "Mommy tried to make me lie again." He held her close, anger burning in his chest. "It's okay, princess. She won't bother you anymore." That evening, Aiden sat with Julian reviewing security footage of the incident. "This is it," his lawyer declared. "With this, we can terminate all her parental rights. No judge will grant access after she violated the restraining order." "Good." Aiden's voice was cold. "I want her completely destroyed. She's doing most of the work herself, with the school incident, the public outbursts, the recorded plots with Gavin." Julian shook his head. "She's coming apart at the seams. And Gavin, trying to cut a deal with the feds, now has bigger problems than Miranda." Aiden nodded and pulled up his email. "Send this to the prosecutors. Full records of his overseas accounts, connections to known criminals, everything. You're burning all his bridges. That's the point." Aiden's eyes were hard. "I want them both to have nothing and no one left." Meanwhile, Gavin faced his own nightmare. His criminal associates were pressing him hard. "You can't testify," a burly man warned in a back alley meeting. "If you open your mouth, we'll open you." Gavin wiped sweat from his face. "What choice do I have?" "They've got everything." "Not our problem. Keep quiet or else." The threat sent him running to the FBI, willing to tell all in exchange for protection. His testimony opened new investigations, dragging more of his associates into the mess. Miranda, desperate and alone, tried one last gambit. She appeared at Aiden's house late at night, pounding on the door. "I know you're in there. You can't ignore me forever." Aiden watched through security cameras as she grew more unhinged, ranting about their marriage and his betrayal. When she tried to break a window, he called the police. They found her with a rock in her hand, incoherent with rage. The arrest was caught on multiple cameras. "I want to see my daughter," she screamed as officers led her away. "You can't keep her from me." Aiden watched until the police car disappeared, then went to check on Sophie. She stood in her doorway, trembling. "Was that Mommy?" he asked, kneeling down to her level. "Yes, Princess, but you're safe. I promise to protect you." She hugged him tight. "Why is she so angry?" he whispered. "Sometimes people get angry when they make bad choices and must face the consequences." He stroked her hair. "Try to get some sleep. I'll stay right here." The next morning, Julian arrived with news about Gavin. "He's talking to the feds," his lawyer reported as he settled into Aiden's office chair, naming names and providing documents. "His old friends are not happy." Aiden's expression darkened. "How unhappy?" he asked. "He requested protective custody last night, claiming he's received death threats." Julian handed over a file. His testimony mentions Miranda specifically, saying she was aware of the fraud scheme from the beginning. "Perfect." Aiden reviewed the documents. "Make sure the district attorney gets copies. I want her charged as an accessory." Across town, Gavin sat in an interrogation room, spilling secrets to federal agents. "The Riverside Avenue project was entirely fabricated," he admitted. "We inflated costs and fabricated invoices. Miranda helped create shell companies under her maiden name." An agent prompted, "And the other women?" "Same pattern. Unhappy wives, promised luxury and excitement, used to access their husbands' resources." He wiped his face. "Aiden wasn't supposed to be different. We never thought he'd fight back like this." Meanwhile, Miranda faced a judge for her restraining order violation. "Your Honor, my client is simply a mother desperate to see her child," her lawyer argued. The prosecutor stood. "A mother caught on video coaching her child to make false abuse allegations, who violated a clear court order and attempted to vandalize her husband's home. 3 days in jail." The judge ruled, and the restraining order was extended to include all forms of contact, including through third parties. Miranda's wails echoed through the courtroom as she was led away, her fashionable life now reduced to an orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. That evening, Aiden received another anonymous package. Inside was surveillance footage of Miranda meeting Gavin at a motel just days earlier, conspiring to find new ways to attack Aiden's reputation. "Send copies to the district attorney," he instructed Silas over the phone. "And make sure her lawyer sees them. I want him to know exactly how hopeless her case is." The investigator grunted in agreement. "She's spinning out of control." Aiden's voice was steel. "That's exactly where I want them." He ended the call and went to join Sophie for dinner. She was setting the table, trying to be extra helpful since Miranda was in custody. "Can we have movie night, Daddy?" "Of course, Princess," he replied, helping her with the plates. "You pick the movie." As they settled in to watch, Aiden's phone buzzed with news alerts. Vertex Technologies CEO vindicated, Gavin agreeing to testify in the fraud case, and Miranda jailed for restraining order violation. The pieces were falling perfectly into place. Gavin was destroying himself to avoid prison, while Miranda's desperate actions only reinforced Aiden's narrative. Their attempt to ruin him had backfired spectacularly. Aiden looked at his daughter, peacefully watching her movie, and felt his resolve harden further. They had tried to use her as a weapon against him. Now he would ensure they paid the ultimate price for that betrayal. The war was not over, but Act 2 was reaching its climax. Miranda and Gavin were learning the hard way that crossing Aidan Caldwell was the biggest mistake of their lives. Their world was crumbling, their reputations in tatters, their futures bleak, and Aidan was far from finished with them. In his office at Vertex Technologies, multiple screens displayed the ruins of Gavin Drake's empire, financial reports, court documents, and news articles painting a picture of total destruction. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. The IRS task force is ready, Silas reported, placing a thick folder on Aidan's desk. They're just waiting for the final piece. Aidan opened the folder, examining the detailed records of Gavin's shell companies. Send it. All of it. I want federal agents at his door by morning. Silas nodded, then hesitated. There's something else. Gavin has been meeting with some unsavory characters, the kind that solve problems permanently. If you know what I mean, let him try. Aidan's voice held no fear. We have everything recorded. One move against me, and he'll face additional charges. That evening, Gavin sat in a dimly lit bar, meeting with a man known only as Martinez. The man's face bore scars that spoke of violence. I need this problem handled, Gavin slurred, pushing an envelope across the table. Aidan Caldwell. He's ruining everything. Martinez opened the envelope, counted the bills, then slid it back. Not enough. Besides, he's too high profile now. You want him gone. Do it yourself. Gavin grabbed his arm. I'm losing everything, he cried. The scared man removed Gavin's hand, twisting it until Gavin whimpered. No, you don't understand. Caldwell has protection, professional security, and from what I hear, he has compromising information on half the city. Touch him, and you'll disappear. Now get out. While Gavin drowned his sorrows, Aidan launched his next attack. He sent the comprehensive file to the IRS and SEC, detailing years of tax evasion and securities fraud. The evidence was irrefutable. His phone rang. Julian, his lawyer reported, federal agents have hit all of Gavin's properties simultaneously. They're seizing everything. They found his private servers even though the encryption did not hold up. Aidan smiled coldly. Have our team start analyzing the data. I want to know everyone he's ever worked with, every deal he's ever made. Already on it. But there's more. Miranda has been busy too. Tell me. She tried accessing your company servers. Failed, obviously. But she's desperate. Dangerous. Aidan pulled up the security feeds from his home. Sophie was doing homework in the kitchen while Mrs. Chen, the nanny I hired, prepared dinner. Everything was normal. Everything secure. Let her try, he said. Each attempt only gives us more ammunition. He switched screens to view Miranda's current location. His ex-wife was in a cheap motel room, her designer lifestyle replaced by discount store clothes and fast food wrappers. She was typing furiously on a laptop, probably composing more falsehoods about him. Aidan opened his email and began composing a message to her. Miranda, attached is footage of your latest motel meeting with Gavin, along with records of your involvement in his financial schemes. The FBI has copies. You tried to destroy me by using our daughter as a weapon. Now watch as I dismantle everything you thought you could achieve. This is far from over, Aidan Caldwell. He included video clips showing her coaching Sophie, documentation of her role in Gavin's fraud, and bank records proving her complicity. Each piece of evidence another nail in her coffin. Across town, Miranda opened the email. Her face went pale as she watched the videos, seeing the proof of her own destruction laid out in precise detail. She grabbed her phone and dialed Gavin's number. No answer. She tried his lawyer, straight to voicemail. Even her own attorney had stopped taking her calls. In desperation, she called her parents. Mom, please, I need help. Aidan is destroying everything. You destroyed everything yourself. Her mother replied coldly. We saw the videos, Miranda. How could you use Sophie like that? You don't understand. Gavin promised. Gavin, that criminal. He's probably going to prison, and you might join him. "Do not call us again." The line went dead. Miranda screamed, throwing her phone against the wall. Meanwhile, Aiden reviewed the latest report from his legal team. Julian had systematically dismantled every attempt Miranda made to salvage her reputation. Her false abuse claims were exposed. Her lies about Aiden's business practices were disproven. Her attempts to manipulate Sophie were documented and condemned. "Mr. Caldwell," his assistant buzzed, "the FBI agents are here for your statement about Mr. Drake's operations. Send them in." 2 agents entered, notebooks ready. Aiden spent the next hour detailing Gavin's criminal enterprise, providing dates, names, and documentation. A picture of corruption so complete that escape would be impossible. "One more thing," he said as they prepared to leave. "You'll want to look into these accounts." He handed them a flash drive. "They show my ex-wife's involvement in the scheme." Aiden corrected himself with a cold smile. That night, as Aiden tucked Sophie into bed, she asked a question that made his heart ache. "Daddy, will I ever see Mommy again?" He sat on the edge of her bed, choosing his words carefully. "Sometimes, Princess, people make choices that have big consequences. Your mom made very bad choices because she tried to make me lie. Yes, and other things too. But you never have to worry. I will always protect you." After Sophie fell asleep, Aiden returned to his study. He opened his laptop to review the day's progress. Gavin's empire was crumbling. Federal agents dismantling it piece by piece. Miranda was isolated, her resources drained, her reputation ruined. But it wasn't enough. They had tried to destroy me by using my daughter against me. The price for such betrayal would be complete and absolute. He pulled up a new document and began typing. Phase 2 of their destruction is about to begin. 6 months later, Aiden sat in his expanded office at Vertex Technologies, reviewing the final reports of his victory. Gavin Drake had been sentenced to 35 years in federal prison. His empire dismantled, his assets seized, his name synonymous with corruption. Miranda's fate was equally complete, found guilty of multiple charges. She lost everything: money, reputation, and freedom. Even her parents had been forced to sell their home. Their retirement savings drained by legal fees and Aiden's relentless lawsuits. A knock at his door. Julian arrived with the latest updates. Gavin's appeal was denied, his lawyer reported. He's been transferred to maximum security after that failed escape attempt. Aiden nodded, unsurprised. Miranda accepted a plea deal minus 10 years plus restitution. She would never recover financially. Her parents were living in a small apartment in Florida, their social circle completely shunned. Julian placed a final document on Aiden's desk. The divorce is officially final. Full custody of Sophie, and no visitation rights for Miranda. Aiden signed the paper, completing his ex-wife's eradication from their lives. Anyone else who helped them, all handled. Friends, business associates, everyone who knew about their plans, all facing consequences. He stood, gathering his things. "Then we're done here. I am taking Sophie to her dance recital." The transformation of their lives was complete. Aiden had moved them to a new home in a secured community. Mrs. Chen, the nanny, provided stability and warmth. Sophie was thriving at her new school. Her grades improved. Her smile returned. That evening, as they sat in their living room after the recital, Sophie curled up next to him with a book. "Read to me, Daddy." He took the book, his voice gentle, a tone reserved solely for her. The story was about a princess who saved herself, who learned to be strong and true. As she drifted off to sleep, Aiden reflected on their journey. He had emerged victorious, his enemies destroyed, his daughter protected. The cost had been high, but necessary. No one would ever again mistake his kindness for weakness. His new life stretched ahead, strong and uncompromised. Let his story be a warning to others. Never mistake a good man's kindness for weakness, and never betray someone who built himself from nothing. Aiden looked at Sophie's latest school photo on his desk and allowed himself a small smile. They had tried to break him, But instead he had broken them. Completely, permanently, without mercy. It was done. 10 years later, the skyline of the city had changed, but Vertex Technologies' headquarters still dominated the business district. The building had doubled in size, its gleaming exterior a testament to Aidan Caldwell's continued success. Inside his top-floor office, Aidan reviewed the quarterly reports with the same sharp attention he had always shown. At 52, he had aged well. His hair with touches of gray at the temples adding gravitas to his appearance, and his eyes retaining their intensity, though the lines around them spoke of both laughter and stern determination. Vertex Technologies had expanded globally, its value increasing tenfold since the days of Miranda's betrayal. "Dad." Aidan looked up to see Sophie in his doorway. At 20, she was a striking young woman, carrying herself with the confidence of someone who had learned early about strength and resilience. She was home from college, where she studied computer science and business, following in her father's footsteps while crafting her own path. "Come in, Princess," he said. The nickname had stuck, though she had long outgrown its childish origins. "The foundation board is waiting," she reminded him. After the dust had settled from Miranda and Gavin's destruction, Aidan had established the Caldwell Foundation for Children of Broken Homes, turning his personal tragedy into a force for good. Sophie served on the board during her college breaks. 5 minutes, he promised, closing his laptop. "How's the new scholarship program coming along?" "We've selected the first 50 recipients, all kids from situations like mine. Parents who tried to use them as weapons in divorces," she explained as she settled into a chair. "It's making a real difference, Dad." Aidan nodded, pride evident in his expression. The foundation was part of his legacy, helping children while serving as a constant reminder to the world of what Miranda had tried to do. "Have you heard the latest about Gavin?" Sophie asked, her tone neutral. "Julian mentioned something." "Fill me in." "He tried for parole again. Denied. The parole board said he hasn't shown genuine remorse. He still has 25 years to go." Aidan's expression remained unchanged. "Gavin Drake's downfall is total and complete. The once prominent developer now resides in a maximum security prison, his health failing, his fortune gone. He even tried writing a book about his experiences, but Aidan's lawyers shut it down due to confidentiality agreements he had signed years ago." "And your mother?" Aidan asked carefully. They rarely discussed Miranda, but he never hid information from his daughter. "She was released last month and tried to contact me through social media." Sophie's voice held no emotion. "I blocked her. Miranda's decade in prison had been just the beginning of her punishment. Upon release, she found herself in a world where her name was toxic. No one would hire her. Her former social circle shunned her completely. She lived in a halfway house, working minimum wage jobs. Her designer lifestyle, a distant memory. You know, you can always talk to Dr. Sanders about it." Aidan reminded her, referring to the family therapist who had helped them process the trauma years ago. "I know, Dad, but I'm okay." "Really?" she said, standing and smoothing her blazer. "The foundation board is waiting." As they walked to the conference room, Aidan reflected on the years since his revenge had played out. He had kept his promise, not only destroying Miranda and Gavin, but ensuring their destruction was permanent. Julian still served as Vertex Technologies' chief legal counsel, his loyalty rewarded with a partnership track and generous stock options. He had expanded the legal department to handle the company's international growth, while maintaining an iron grip on anything related to the old cases. Aidan, Sophie, Julian greeted them in the conference room. At 65, he had reduced his workload but remained as sharp as ever. "I just got word about Miranda's latest attempt to rebuild her life." Aidan raised an eyebrow slightly. "She tried opening a small business, one of those online boutiques." Julian's smile was cold. "Our monitors flagged it. It turns out she violated her parole by not disclosing the business venture. She's back under investigation." Aidan nodded, unsurprised. The monitoring systems he had put in place years ago still tracked anything related to Miranda or Gavin. Any attempt they made to rise from the ashes was swiftly crushed. The Foundation Board meeting proceeded smoothly. They approved funding for new programs, reviewed success stories, and discussed expansion plans. Sophie presented her proposals with confidence, her academic excellence matched by her business acumen. Later that evening, Aidan hosted a small dinner party at his home. The modest mansion sat on a secured estate, its grounds carefully monitored. Mrs. Chen, now retired but still part of the family, had helped prepare the meal before returning to her cottage on the property. Silas attended, his investigative agency now one of the most respected in the country. He had parlayed his work on the Miranda Gavin case into major corporate contracts, though he maintained a special relationship with Vertex Technologies. "Remember Gavin's old building on Riverside Avenue?" Silas asked over dinner. "It's being demolished next week. The city is putting in a community center." "Fitting," Aidan replied. "The Gavin Drake empire has been systematically erased from the city landscape, each property sold, renamed, or repurposed. His former partners are still serving time. The ones that survived, anyway," Silas added. Several of Gavin's criminal associates had met unfortunate ends in prison, though Aidan had maintained careful distance from those events. The conversation turned to happier topics. Sophie's upcoming internship at a tech startup. She insisted on making her own way, not at Vertex. The Foundation's growing influence, and Aidan's recent acceptance of a distinguished business leadership award. After dinner, Aidan found Sophie in his study, looking at old photographs. One showed her at age 10, just before everything fell apart. "Do you ever regret how thoroughly you destroyed them?" she asked, her voice thoughtful. Aidan joined her at the desk. "They tried to destroy us first. They used you as their weapon. Some crimes deserve complete retribution. Mom's sister tried to contact me too," Sophie revealed. "She said Mom has really changed and deserves a chance to apologize." "That's your decision to make now," Aidan said carefully. "You're old enough to choose. I chose years ago, Dad. She taught me to lie, tried to send you to prison, and even attempted to run off with Gavin. Some things are unforgivable." Aidan squeezed her shoulder gently. She had grown into a remarkable young woman, strong, ethical, and clear-eyed about the past. The next morning, Aidan's assistant brought in the daily reports. Buried among business updates was news about Miranda's former parents. They had died within months of each other in their tiny Florida apartment, never recovering from the financial ruin Aidan's lawsuits had wrought. Their funeral was sparsely attended, a final casualty of betrayal's price. Aidan had maintained his position as a respected business leader, his personal tragedy transformed into a story of resilience and justice. The media occasionally dredged up the past, but his PR team managed the narrative skillfully. He was the wronged husband who had fought back, the devoted father who had protected his child, the businessman whose integrity had triumphed over corruption. Vertex Technologies' success continued unabated. Aidan had diversified into new technologies. His company was at the forefront of several emerging fields. The wealth and power he had accumulated ensured that neither Miranda nor Gavin could ever pose a threat again, even if they somehow recovered from their downfall. Later, he attended a board meeting at one of the city's most prestigious private schools. They had named a STEM center after him, funded by the Caldwell Foundation. The irony was not lost on him. The man Miranda had tried to destroy now shaped the education of future generations. His phone buzzed with a message from Julian. "Miranda's parole violation confirmed. She's facing another year of supervision, plus fines she cannot pay. Shall we pursue civil penalties?" Aidan typed back with full pressure. No mercy. Some would call it overkill, but Aidan believed that mercy to traitors was weakness. His response to betrayal had become legendary in business circles, a cautionary tale about crossing the wrong man. That evening, he watched Sophie practicing at his private gym. She had taken up martial arts years ago, building physical strength to match her mental resilience. her instructor praised her discipline, unaware of the deep motivations behind her training. Movie night, she suggested after her workout, a tradition they had maintained since those dark days. Your pick, princess. They settled in the media room, a space comfortable but secure, just like everything in Aiden's life now. During a quiet moment, Sophie said, "Dad, I'm proud of us, for how we survived and thrived." Aiden looked at his daughter, his greatest achievement, his strongest motivation, the one pure thing to emerge from those dark times. "We did more than survive," he replied. "We showed the world what happens to those who mistake kindness for weakness." The years had proven him right. Total destruction of his enemies had brought total peace to his life. Miranda and Gavin's attempt to destroy him had led to their own annihilation, a perpetual warning to others who might consider betrayal. Aiden Caldwell had kept his promises, to protect his daughter, to destroy his enemies, and to ensure their punishment was permanent and complete. His legacy was secured, his victory absolute, his revenge eternal. The world had learned its lesson. Never cross a man who values loyalty above all else, who meets betrayal with destruction, who shows no mercy to those who would harm his family. In his climate-controlled wine cellar, a bottle of 20-year scotch sat unopened. The same brand he had drunk the night he discovered Miranda's betrayal. He was saving it for a special occasion, though he had not yet decided which one. Perhaps he would open it when Gavin died in prison, or when Miranda finally broke completely, or maybe he would share it with Sophie on her wedding day. A reminder of how far they had come and how completely they had triumphed. The future stretched ahead, bright with promise. Aiden had built an empire on the ashes of betrayal, turned tragedy into triumph, and ensured that his story would be told for generations, not just as a tale of revenge, but as a testament to the price of treachery and the power of ruthless justice. The security system hummed quietly, its cameras monitoring the perimeter, while computers in his office tracked the continued downfall of his former enemies. In his heart remained the cold satisfaction of complete victory. Aiden Caldwell had won not just the battle, but the entire war. His enemies were destroyed, his daughter was thriving, and his legacy was secured. It was, he reflected, exactly the ending they all deserved.